Merrifield.
Sandy. Here. Vian. Here. Marshall.
Here.
Mock. Weber.
Here.
Weigel. Here. Dockler.
Here.
We have a quorum.
We have one.
Mayor Gander.
Roll call. Mayor Steve Gander.
Here.
Council President Mark Olstad.
Here.
Council Vice President Chad Grassel.
Here.
Mark Demers.
Present.
Dale Helms.
Here.
Tim Riopel.
Here.
Tim Johnson.
Here.
Clarence Vetter.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'd like to thank you for coming. And it's important that as elected officials, communities, we face difficult issues that approach our community. So with that, we'll go with item 2, Grand Forks East Grand Forks. Oh, Mr. Mayor Gander.
Just want to say I'm thankful to have good representation from the community here tonight. We do want to hear from you a little later on. These decisions are only made well with tons of input and careful deliberation. I look forward to hearing from Mr. Earl Haugen about the steps that we've taken to get to this point. And so tonight we have that opportunity to look ahead to where we go from here. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Haugen.
Thanks, Mayor, City Council members, members of the audience. Again, Earl Haugen, Executive Director of Grand Forks, East Grand Forks Metropolitan Planning Organization. And, wow, that was quick. We could have the PowerPoint projecting instead of camera, council.
There we go.
So, I was asked to present on what is in the actual 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, specifically focus on what it contains for bridges over the Red River. Now there's a lot of other information that covers a lot of other areas of Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, but tonight's focus is on the Red River and the bridges over the Red River. So I hopefully hit on these points. And that should be the information to set the stage for the rest of the meeting. So we do have 3 existing bridges. There are some projects identified in the future to maintain those 3 bridges. So on the Kennedy Bridge, we just had a major rehab project done. It's about finishing up right now. So in the future, the next 20 to 25 years, all that is being identified is a preventive maintenance type project. And that is going to be out in the outer years in the 2035 to 2045 time frame. It does have a price tag of $5 million. That is an inflated cost to that future year. The funds have been identified. The funds have been set aside to do that project. So we expect that the Kennedy Bridge will be good and capable of carrying traffic well into the future. We do have a nearby structure to the Kennedy, and that's in East Grand Forks. If you drive over the Kennedy Bridge into East Grand Forks, there's the interchange with River Road, 4th Street. That bridge is scheduled for total replacement, and you see that is going to happen. It's going to happen about 2026 is what the year pegged right now. That is also a $5 million replacement cost. That also has revenue identified for it and prioritized for it. So that project should happen given all other things remain the same. So the recent project that was done there, a decision was made not to add capacity to it, just to rehab. That left us with some capacity issues on that corridor. We're currently studying Gateway Drive or US 2, specifically on the North Dakota side, because our traffic volumes are having issues there today, and as we project out into the future, the capacity is not there to meet the demand. So on the Kennedy Bridge, even though the bridge itself will stay and be the way it is today, we know on both sides of it, the roadways leading up to it have capacity issues today, and we'll have them in the future. So tomorrow in this room, if you want to learn more about Gateway Drive, there's an open house specific to that study, again tomorrow at this time, right here in this place. For the Sorley Bridge, or the downtown bridge, It also recently just had a project done on it. There was an extensive review of the structure, and in the end, we actually had money programmed to replace the structure, but in the end, they decided all it needed was basic repainting and some minor work. And so that decision allows us then to not have to revisit that structure for another long time. So at the end of our 2045 timeframe, we have another similar project that we have on the Kennedy Bridge occurring on the Sorley Bridge. Same project, same pricing. The money has been identified and set aside for that project. We also have in East Grand Forks in the future total replacement of the traffic signals in downtown East Grand Forks. So that is a project that will happen in the future that will affect the Sorley Bridge. We know starting in May, Demers Avenue and Grand Forks will be totally reconstructed. The decision on that reconstruction was just to put back in place the capacity that's there today. So both the Sorley Bridge decision to just repaint and the Demers decision to just reconstruct what's there leaves us with capacity concerns, not again just today, but more so into the future. The MPO is about to start a downtown transportation plan to help resolve those issues and also work with the traffic signal replacement in East Grand Forks to help make the whole corridor of Demers Avenue and Grand Forks, East Grand Forks operate better. The Point Bridge. 10 years ago, there was a decision, or it's more than 10 now. It's 14 years ago, a decision was to just basically repaint the Point Bridge and maintain it in the capacity that it provides. In the near term, there's another repainting job programmed in the plan to keep that bridge operational. Back in that 2006 repainting project, they didn't have to do a traffic operations report for the type of project it was, but it did identify as one of the alternatives a replacement alternative. They didn't pursue that obviously, but if they would have pursued replacement, it would have meant that the added capacity would have had to been built to meet the future demand. That obviously didn't happen, and because there isn't another bridge to the south, the near south side neighborhood here in Grand Forks has been asking the city, and we've been working with the city on doing some traffic calming techniques, and you've seen some on Reeves Drive in particular. And while we can identify some benefits and improvements to the near south neighborhood with these techniques, another south end bridge would help much more for that neighborhood. So that's what's going on with the existing three structures. Even though we're not doing anything to add capacity to them, we've had projects recently done on them. We've also identified that there are capacity issues leading to and from both, all three of those bridges. And we have started studies for the Kennedy and the Sorley. For the Point Bridge, and the reason most of you are here is that we felt the need to site another location to the south. Before I get to that, there is one project that we identified that we could not find funding for in the current plan, and that is on the Point Bridge. There's a slide on the Minnesota approach, and you can barely, here's the end of the bridge structure. Here you can see the slide showing through the asphalt. It had, back when the Sorley Bridge project in 2006, they evaluated what it would cost to fix this. At that time, it was a $1.4 million. There were no funds at that time to do the project. So since then, they've been putting in asphalt fill to make that bump less noticeable. Just last year, they put in that fill the last time. But it is an unfunded project. meaning we identified the need, but we couldn't find revenue for it. And it's escalated now to about $4 million because of inflation. So for the future river corridors, we have Appendix C in our documentation. It's a 171-page report that talks about how we went through the process of identifying if there were south end bridge locations, where should we study them, and what the data would tell us. And I won't go through a 171-page report. I will go and highlight some of the things that we did to come to the conclusions we did. The first one is just basically reciting what I just told you, that there are some existing issues on all 3 river crossings. In the future, they don't get better, they get worse without another south end bridge. This slide gives you some, hopefully we're all familiar with level of service, that we give roadways and intersections a letter grade just like you got in school. So A is great, F is failing. You can see here that in 2045 we've got some intersections that are failing without that additional bridge. We have some intersections that are at level E, that is considered a failing grade. And without another bridge, we identified what could be done, particularly at the 2 intersections that are F. Those 2 intersections are Belmont and 4th Avenue and Belmont and 32nd Avenue. So regardless of a bridge, we need to do traffic control improvements at those 2 intersections to solve the future traffic demand.
How do you get fail? So is that just because it's a 4-way stop and not a traffic light, or?
Yeah, a 4-way traffic stop can only handle so much cars.
Okay.
And as you increase the cars, you have to go to a different traffic control.
Earl, I'm sure this is obvious, I just have to ask it though. If Belmont and 4th is rated an F, what's the rationale in a sentence or 2 why they would have taken the traffic light out at that intersection and made it a stop sign? Is that flow of traffic, or?
Well, what happened with that traffic signal is somebody ran over one of the standards,
Okay,
ran over 2 of the standards. It's very old equipment. Replacement was not available. Working with the neighborhood wanted to see if a 4-way stop would make it better, so they installed the 4-way stop. With the traffic volumes there today, the 4-way stop functions well.
so, but for clarification for me though, a traffic light would be a safer option from a traffic standpoint?
It would improve traffic flow.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So that would raise it from the F to a,
I'll show that soon.
Okay.
So we were asked to look at another river crossing. These were the conditions or the criteria they asked us to consider. I highlighted the one that was stressed the most, and that was the location should serve local traffic primarily. And we started out initially just looking at 17th Avenue. It was called 24th Avenue initially, but we more precisely picked Elks Drive. If you don't know where Elks Drive is, it's near 24th Avenue South. 32nd Avenue, 47th Avenue, and Merrifield Road. And these are all Grand Forks reference locations, because over in Minnesota there just aren't roads necessarily on the other side. How did we think these bridges would look like? Again, because they're serving local traffic, we modeled the Point Bridge as a bridge of similar characteristics. You will notice that there's 1 lane in each direction. When the Point Bridge was built, they didn't have design standards that required shoulders. So we would now have to show shoulders. When the Point Bridge was built, they didn't have the demand or the requirement of a multi-use access point. So we modeled that. So this is a cross-section of what the bridges for all 5 locations were, so that we were making sure that we were doing apples to apples to apples to apples to apples comparison on all locations. The other thing that we did to make sure that it was served local traffic is that we only connected to the nearest north-south roadway in either city. We did not add any new connections to I-29 to the west or to US 2 east of East Grand Forks. Because again, our mission was to find a location that served that local traffic need. We have a traffic demand model that we use as one of our tools to help identify what not only traffic issues exist today, but from the federal government and the state government and the both local government points of view, we not only want to make sure what we invest in today solves today, but it'll last at least 20 years into the future. So we have to forecast out what we think traffic will be in 2045 in this case. So using our travel demand model, we identify what the traffic is today. That's the top number of these. The middle number is 2045 without a bridge, another bridge to the south. And then the bottom number is what the traffic changes if we build one to the south. This shows 32nd Avenue. And so we've located a few key points in the network as to how the traffic changes, how we predict traffic will change if we did a bridge here. We did this analysis for all 5 sites. Oops. So to try to give some idea of what that local traffic impact is versus what a regional traffic attraction that bridge might be, we initially chose 2 points. The first one is out here on the Mallory Bridge over the Red Lake River east of East Grand Forks. That gave us some sense of the regional traffic pull. We also then looked at traffic on Bigland Road in East Grand Forks. This slide shows in our model, we do what's called a select link. So when we put a bridge, this happens to be Elks Drive Bridge. We ask the model to track every vehicle that crosses that bridge, tell us where it came from or where it's going to. And we compared it versus the other model, so it showed us where traffic was taken away from. So with a new bridge, it attracts traffic that exists already in the model, so the model can tell us where that traffic is coming from that's attracted to the bridge. And the reason I put this example on there is it's the one example because on the North Dakota side, it enters a T intersection. The traffic gets split amongst several neighborhoods. So the red shows that Park Drive would have an increase in traffic in front of its house with the bridge at Elks. 17th or 24th Avenue would as well. 32nd Avenue would as well. Belmont Road would, and a small segment of 17th or 13th Avenue would. All the other crossings, because they went directly into an arterial roadway, stayed on that arterial roadway. But this was one example. I'm trying to show you that our model was able to give us some sense of where traffic was coming and going, so that again we could try to identify local traffic versus that regional traffic. This is sort of a glance at all of the existing bridges, how each individual bridge option affects the existing bridges, and what happens to the new bridges as far as level of service. On the top is Kennedy Bridge. You can see that there is some improvement. It's not great, but it does squeeze out enough improvement to allow us to tell the feds in the state that that's acceptable traffic, a letter D. On the Sorley or Demers Avenue, again, as I've said, it has little impact on the Sorley or downtown corridor. The biggest impact is on the Point Bridge. And the further north you are, the more improvement you have on the Point Bridge corridor. And then as you go south, it starts to degrade, a letter. Another way of showing that impact is here in the lower right are the change in traffic volume on the Mallory Bridge over the Red Lake River. And you see as you go further south, it attracts more regional traffic, if you will, than if you're at the northern locations. Over here, it shows the opposite. This happens to be on Bigland Road in East Grand Forks. And you can see the further north you are, the more local traffic it is providing. Two other spots that we look at. Here is Point Bridge itself, Minnesota Avenue just west of the Point Bridge. Again, the more north you are, the more local traffic it is. The further south you are, the less local it is. Less local here, more regional here as the further south you go. Here is at 17th Belmont Road at 17th Avenue South. Again, further north, more local traffic, south, less. So this gets back to your question about what the future level of service will be. If we are to locate a bridge except at Merrifield, we'll have a level of service B at Belmont and 4th. At 32nd in Belmont, if you locate a bridge at 32nd Avenue, here we identified traffic signal, and I've since said to people that I probably should not identify that specifically as a traffic signal. 5 years ago, that probably would have been a more definitive answer, but nowadays we have alternative intersection designs, roundabouts a possibility, so there would need to be a different traffic control happen there, regardless of the bridge. But if the bridge was there, it could be the same traffic control, and we would get level service C, acceptable level service C.
So does that show that at 47th is actually better than it is if you had the bridge at 47th Avenue?
At 47th Avenue, this shows that the intersection of 47th and Belmont with a traffic signal could be a level service B.
Which is higher than a C.
Yes.
You currently rate 32nd.
Because it attracts less traffic. There's less traffic at 47th than at 32nd. So that's the result of the level service grade. I'm sorry?
You currently rate 32nd in Belmont in the future as an F without the added bridge, correct?
Correct.
In that previous slide?
Yes.
So by adding 4,000 cars, you're going to move it to a C?
At Belmont and 4th, if we add a bridge to the south, the traffic is essentially very similar to what it is today. Without a bridge to the south, the traffic will build up to 12,000 cars a day on that roadway.
My question was Belmont and 32nd, you currently have rated as an F. Without an added bridge.
Yep.
You have the 4th and the 32nd as both Fs. Now with the additional cars, you're saying it's going to move from an F to a C.
With the improved traffic control. Just like this is able to get better without a bridge with improved traffic control. Both are always stops.
I also had a question. If they, when the Grand Forks get to the point where they can't replace a stoplight, 4th Avenue South. I mean, where does that come from? Why can't they replace that stoplight? Would the same thing happen in 32nd? If somebody ran in and knocked the stop sign over, would they not replace it, or would they just put the stop sign back up?
Well, again, there was a process the city went through to make its decision to put the four-way stops in.
See, I have another question. Can you go back to the design features of you had mentioned that the new bridges were going to be designed after the Point Bridge? Does that mean they'll curve like the Point Bridge, or will they be straight across? I just want to make sure I understand this.
The cross-section would be like the Point Bridge as far as 2 lanes, 1 in each direction. I pointed out the differences would be the added shoulder, which is required now, which wasn't back in the 60s when the Point Bridge was built. And the requirement now is for the accommodation of all modes.
Right, I understand all that, but when you said the design, is it going to be straight across like Kennedy Bridge and Sorley, or will it be a curved bridge like the Point Bridge? Because we talked about the design of the bridge.
Yep, and I'll answer that here very soon.
And then will it be, with the design, will it be high enough where it's not going to back up ice down in the springtime, or have to be closed?
I think if you let him finish his presentation, he'll answer that question.
Thank you. I'm just about there. In fact, I'm there. Each of the bridges had a different alignment. These are very conceptual alignments. They're not alignments that anybody would construct a bridge from. So these are very high altitude conceptual alignments depicting where 32nd Avenue is and where it would connect on the Minnesota side. One of the main features that's showing is in red, and that is the flood protection system that's in place. So for the ability of 32nd Avenue to land inside the flood protection system was a desire. So it is curved. The bridge itself would not be curved, but the approach to and the approach on both sides could be curved. We wouldn't have a definitive answer until project development occurred. More analysis happened, a bunch more analysis happened before we could say definitively yes, no curve, or no, it will have a curve. The next one zooms in a little bit to get to that answer about how will it operate, particularly during flood conditions. And again, the Point Bridge was a sample that we're working from. The Point Bridge, currently, the structure itself is high. The approaches are the floodable part. Just like the bike pedestrian bridges that are part of the Greenway feature, the structure is meant to flood. Because of the flood protection system and the criteria in getting permits to cross or impede it, and also the cost. Well, I'm going wrong, sorry. The cost to have a structure from top of dike to top of dike triples the cost. We were identifying a bridge that the bridge itself would be high, but the approaches would be floodable, which allows it to be permitted within the flood protection system. Just again, like the 2 new bridges were put in place as part of the flood protection system.
Would the bridge have to close during the spring as the Sorley Bridge is right now, or would it be allowed, would it be high enough up that it would be able to remain open even during high water levels?
It would be subject to closure, just like the Point Bridge is subject to closure.
Do you have studies like this on other South Lake locations also?
All 5 locations got the same treatment. So you will notice for all 5 a similar profile, everything the same. So, I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't, so does it go the Greenway path, so is it going across that, or is the bridge going over all that? The
structure here is the dike itself. Most of the Greenway Trail system is located very close to the dike structure. So the bridge is over the main water body of the river. So unless, as part of the construction, they built a grade separated trail crossing, it would be at grade, just like it is at the Point Bridge on the Grand Forks side, on the dike structure, the opening in the dike structure there at 3rd Street, I'm sorry, in Minnesota.
So I guess, so when it's coming on the Grand Forks side, it's going to be crossing the Greenway Path? Or
Yes, it would be crossing, it would be acting a lot like Elks Drive currently acts in the Greenway system. Elks Drive gets you into the golf course clubhouse. So 32nd Avenue would open through the dike and get you to the bridge. There is an existing Greenway trail system north-south that could cross at grade, or it could be grade separated as part of the construction. Again, that's a design detail that we wouldn't get into at this level.
So the Greenway bike path would not go under the bridge, you would have to cross over the road.
Correct.
It could be either or. I'm saying at this point we don't have the design detail to answer that definitively.
But it would be very expensive to build a bridge over the bike path.
Yeah.
So chances are it would go over the bike path.
So out of the 5 locations, potentially, which one would be the cheapest to build it high enough so we could use it all the time? I mean, in it, obviously you need design factors there, but which is higher on both ends, and how long do these things span? Are all 5 of them the same span? Because you get some of these, you have a lot of lowland before and a lot of lowland after the capture, so.
Yeah.
That's my question.
I believe after this slide I have that answer.
Okay.
This slide is just trying to give a sense that the last time we looked at these many sites for a river crossing was around 2000. There we only were looking at three line items or 3 pay items. This time we tried to do a little more detailed cost analysis of what these crossings would be. I highlighted in yellow here the most significant cost, and that's the cost of the pavement to width. And we started out at $250, working with both state DOTs. They felt that this price per square foot was reasonable. As we got in discussions, some of these other things began to float around. So we used a range of $300 to $250. So you'll see now a range of costs to get to your answer. So the old cost, roughly 20 years ago, you'll notice a low, and that is one that is floodable, operates like the Point Bridge, or high, and that is one that's top of dike to top of dike. And you can see the new cost considerably different between low and high. You do not see those on 47th and Merrifield. There is not a flood protection project on both sides of the river at those locations to have a top of dike to top of dike bridge. Yes?
If the bridge is built at 32nd Avenue South, will there be a load limit on it, or will there be farm to factory traffic allowed to cross that bridge?
It is fashioned to be just like the Point Bridge operates. So the Point Bridge has signage and ordinances preventing truck traffic and other types of traffic you're describing. The capacity for it is 1 in each lane, direction of each lane. So the ability of the large farm equipment to make it over there would be very difficult with the traffic, regular traffic going over it.
So the Point Bridge isn't built strong enough to take that traffic, or they just have signage that says they don't want traffic?
The latter. The latter.
The latter?
Yep.
So it could be changed.
Won't be.
Someday, if they decide they wanted to have trucks go across there, or someday decided it would be easier than having trucks downtown, you'd rather have them on 32nd or Merrifield or whatever.
Under this scenario, the bridge wouldn't be wide enough. It wouldn't be wide enough to get, you wouldn't have it wide enough to get traffic in both directions.
I've been a homeowner in the 32nd Avenue for 20 years, and we've been scared about this bridge for 20 years. At this time, you said East Grand Forks doesn't have the 1 to 4 million to fix the slide on the Point Bridge, and Grand Forks didn't have the money to replace a stoplight or to fix the street on 32nd Avenue. Where do this bridge? You keep scaring us with it, but where are all these millions of dollars going to come from?
Again, those decisions were made working through a process that the city of Grand Forks has for why they did not replace the stoplight. It's well documented. I'll try to answer the other part of that question in a future slide. We asked what the benefits of those structures would provide to the traveling public. All 4 crossings had the similar benefit cost. This shows just 2 of the slides, how much benefit would be provided to the traveling public. This is that benefit versus that cost to get you a benefit cost ratio. You can see the further north you are, the more benefits you get per cost, with the exception of Merrifield Road. Merrifield Road does have a good benefit to it. The one exception is 47th Avenue. That has the almost complete opposite benefit cost ratio to it. Again, that's not the be-all, end-all, but it's an important part of the decision-making tool.
Back up one screen. I got a question. Why are you building a bridge that has to be closed?
Because we don't have...
Why build a bridge that has to be closed? Why don't you build a bridge that can stay open?
Because of that cost.
The Merrifield one is the answer, and I'll get to that.
If we can let Earl finish his presentation before we take more questions. We've got a microphone. Anyone that wants to come up and speak is going to be heard. Okay? Let's let him finish his presentation, please.
So, looking back again at the 2 sites that we did, Merrifield, again, $25 million is the cost estimate. It did not have an interchange with I-29, but it still came out with a very positive benefit cost ratio, indicating that for most federal government programs, anything above a 1 is worthy of being built, so we're double that with 2. In 2005, we did a more detailed report on the Merrifield site. Of course, there's been bridge debate, as the one lady mentioned, for quite some time. Merrifield has been a site that's been essentially agreed to for quite a long time. It progressed to a next level in 2005. In that report, we identified that we would have the bridge at the same height as the tieback levee or the Merrifield road raise is in that area, which is roughly elevation of 845 feet above sea level. That probably doesn't mean a lot to a lot of you, but it would be high and dry, I guess is the answer. Not even today's flood, not even 2009 flood, but to the design flood event that the flood protection project is. So in our study, we just had this conceptual alignment for Merrifield. Here is Polk County 58. Here is Grand Forks County 6. Ties in nicely with the county system. But in that report, we went to the next step, and that was to answer some of these questions more about precise alignment. We looked at alignment alternatives. We looked at endangered species. So part of the NEPA Act, we went and analyzed places to avoid because of protection. We also looked at the hydrological profile. So that's where we know at the design height it would be high and dry. So when you give the estimate of $25 million, This structure is intended to serve as that structure that would be built that wouldn't close in addition to the Kennedy Bridge wouldn't close. But because of costs, we're able to do it here because it isn't officially tying into a flood project on both sides of the river. It's complementary to the flood project, but it's outside of the flood project. So again, that's why one bridge, high and dry, $25 million. The other bridge, floodable because it makes the cost manageable. So there's been a lot of topic about, well, let's try to get this a project to a bridge location to a project, a shovel-ready project. And this is a definition from Federal Highways as what that means. Really, before you get through a lot of all of this, you can piecemeal it together, but until you have a truly adopted, signed, sealed, delivered project, you have to answer all of these requirements. You can go forward with a lot of these steps and get yourself primed to go to that last step, but you're subject to that last step complying with all these things. Many of you should be aware that Grand Forks has been considering an underpass or an overpass on 42nd and Devers Avenue area. They've gone through a considerable amount of this steps, but they can't go through the last step because it's not in our plan, because it doesn't have a precise funding source for it. So for any of these two bridges, this can all happen, but you cannot truly get a record of decision from the federal government until every one of these are completed. And every one of these really can't be completed until you have that revenue in hand. So for me, when I'm asked what is a shovel-ready project, this is the definition I work from. For others, they can use this definition and be minus maybe one or two of these steps. But you have a lot of information gathered, analyzed, some decisions made, but not the ultimate record of decision. More revenue. There is more revenue coming. But is it enough? We know that Congress has to authorize a new transportation bill. We know Congress has been working through its processes, however Congress works through its process for many years on trying to devise a new transportation bill. All points lead to identifying more revenue. So in 2020, the current bill expires. They have to take action to continue the flow of federal funds to transportation. So our best guess is that there'll be more revenue. But we can't identify or possibly forecast any of that revenue until after they act. On the North Dakota side, Operation Prairie Dog was passed, it was signed, it is law of North Dakota now. It has more revenue. Infrastructure is the major tag for it. Transportation is one of the infrastructure projects. For our area, the county will receive roughly $5 million every 2 years out of this program. The city of Grand Forks will receive $12 million every 2 years out of this program. And this program is set to infinity until the legislature changes it. We can foresee reasonably in the future that we'll have that amount of money every 2 years out of the North Dakota legislature. We didn't have that until a month ago. So there is more revenue coming that we didn't have a month ago. Minnesota, the governor there has proposed a gas tax hike for transportation. The legislatures are still legislating how much more revenue, but there seems to be general consensus in the Minnesota legislature that more revenue for transportation is needed. Until they end up with their session, we don't know what they'll accomplish. But our guess is there'll be some additional funds coming. I just want to touch on a point, a lot of questions about school safety. Every one of these sites that we looked at for a bridge, there's a school connected to it.
No, Merrifield does not have a school connected.
Thank you for correcting me on that.
Or
47th has schools west of Washington.
Delhi 15 blocks.
Okay, all right, let's let him finish his presentation.
But the existing Point Bridge has schools, 17th has schools, Elks Drive will dump into school, 32nd will dump into school. From our perspective, 47th dumps into school. So even before we really got into bridge discussion, we've been working with the school districts and the cities, both sides of the river, to try to improve safety around the schools. So we do have a document for each school in the metro area identifying improvements to make it safer at that school with or without a bridge. Many of these improvements are needed, and if a bridge were there, they would be just as needed. Annually, we work again with both school districts, Safe Kids, and others to produce what we identify as safe route maps to allow your child to know, and you to know, from our perspective, which is the best route for them to walk or bike to get to school. So we do work actively with the school districts, with both cities, have been, and I anticipate we always will be working to improve school transportation in Grand Forks, East Grand Forks. You will start seeing some, you should have seen some investments in the past. You'll start noticing maybe a new investment as part of this work with the change out of the school crossing beacon signs. They will now be on a, right now they all flash at set times regardless of whether school's in session or not. They'll be upgraded so that they are timed correctly for when the school is in session, and when it's not in session, they'll be turned off. They'll be PED actuated, so if somebody wants to cross there during a non-school time, they can activate the signal so that the crossing can occur, the flashing lights could come on, etc. So we do work on school safety. When we talk about bridges, we have that in mind, with or without a bridge. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So now I'd like to have the council discussion, and then we'll invite public discussion after that. Who would like to open the discussion? Mr. Sandy?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Haugen. I really appreciate your very thorough presentation. There was a lot of information there that I think, although people might not be happy with a lot of what you're saying, the city of Grant, yes, ma'am.
Could you talk into a microphone?
There are no microphones in here. I am sorry. I will try to speak up. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. It's not live. It's for television. So we're out on TV. This is live on television. So try to keep it clean, everyone. We are recording, so we will be able to find you. The MPO spoke a lot tonight. There's a lot of information there. The people that work at the MPO are very good people that are trying to find a solution to a very difficult problem. So I don't fault them for hiring consultants, working very hard, trying to find a way to mitigate some of the issues of traffic that we have on the north end of Grand Forks. From my personal end, I do need to say thank you to Mayor Gander, and I'm sorry we have 2 of our bridges closed and made it hard for you to get here today. We do really appreciate all of the hard-working people in East Grand Forks and the council members of Grand Forks and Council President Olstead for coming. They have an issue in East Grand Forks that they would like to solve as well. And it might surprise all of you, but if we held this meeting in East Grand Forks, there would probably be a similar number of people there that were looking for a south end of East Grand Forks solution. And so we need to be cognizant of the issues in our entire community. That being said, in my opinion, for the city of Grand Forks, I think we have 4 or 5 priorities. First, we need to look for a way to reduce traffic on the local north end roads. the traffic is only growing, it's continued to grow, and the studies have shown that 4th and Belmont will have 12,000, 20,000, how many daily? 12,500 cars daily in 2045. There'll be a lot of cars there. There are schools in that area. We need to try to figure out how to make that area safer for pedestrians. I also think for the city of Grand Forks, we do need to provide better access for farmers and truck traffic to get from Grand Forks side into East Grand Forks, whether they're for the sugar beet plant or trying to get out Highway 2 or moving potatoes to northern East Grand Forks. It's important, and we'd like to move that, in my opinion, out of downtown Grand Forks or out of the Kennedy Bridge area. I also think that we need to provide easy access and ready access for our citizens to get between Grand Forks and East Grand Forks for emergency situations, or whether you're working in Grand Forks or in East Grand Forks. I also believe that we should have a high water bridge so that we're in situations like today. We have a bridge that more of our citizens can use. But but certainly not least, though, I think one of our main priorities is to do no harm. And so, in my opinion, the priorities for those items are: A, we need to do no harm to the citizens of Grand Forks. We need to reduce the traffic on the north end, and we need to provide additional access. With that in mind, again, unless we do something really different, unless we think outside of the box and try to find some way to have a bridge that connects into multiple neighborhoods, meaning somehow connect on, it's crazy, Mr. Bean keeps saying that it can't be done, a bridge that can connect to Reeves, 13th, 17th, Elks, 24th, 32nd, whatever, unless we can spread the traffic out through all the neighborhoods. In my opinion, I don't believe it's fair to put a bridge at 32nd Avenue South, because I want to reduce traffic on the north end, but I don't think moving it into a different neighborhood is reasonable. So again, in my opinion, that leaves us with 3 possible locations: 47th Avenue South, 62nd Avenue South, which we didn't study, and Merrifield. I would like to and would be willing to look at how can we study other options, meaning I'd be willing to look at trying to figure out a road system on the wet side of the dike that moves traffic to multiple neighborhoods and disperses the traffic, and that way all of the neighborhoods can be unhappy with me rather than just 32nd Avenue South. If that doesn't work, though, unfortunately, I think the lowest hanging fruit is we should build the bridge at Merrifield Road and see how it goes. Certainly, that's just my opinion, and I'm only one voice. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy. Mayor Gander, would you like to make comments?
Sure. Mayor Brown, President Sandy, neighbors. First of all, thank you very much. I like all of your analysis except that last part. So I appreciate Mr. Haugen. He does such a nice job. His presentations are in such detail and at great length. So why do we need a South End neighborhood bridge? Which that's where we would disagree, that we still need some neighborhood connection from one neighborhood to the other. I think if this was one city without a state line in between, we'd have had a bridge by now. But when you cross the state line, it's just a hard thing. So how do we do that? Well, we currently have people living on either side of the river. On the south end, they have to go up to the Point Bridge, which is close to 2 miles, cross the Point Bridge, and if their destination is south, then they continue 2 more miles or so and go to where they're going. So that adds somewhere 2, 3, 4 miles to their commute every time they go. And that's extra miles driven on our city streets. That's extra miles through our neighborhoods, which again puts all our pedestrians at risk. By Phoenix Elementary along the Minnesota 4th corridor. And again, Reeves Drive, Belmont, we've talked about all of that. We're overloading those corridors with miles that just don't have to be driven, right? They're north-south trips that just aren't necessary. There would be a more direct linkage through the neighborhoods if we could do that. And under current analysis, the traffic that would be using that bridge is about 50-50, North Dakota, Minnesota. So it is a misconception to say East Grand Forks needs and wants this, but Grand Forks doesn't. So how have we gotten where we are? It should have probably happened maybe 25 years ago that a corridor was properly identified, but it didn't happen. It should have happened 50 years ago before there were any homes built along in there, but it didn't happen. So now we're forced with this retrofit into existing neighborhoods of a neighborhood bridge. And yet here we are. And the longer we wait, more houses will be built and more costs will happen by inflation. And so let's not let the mistakes of the last 25 and 50 years just keep piling up. Plus the fear that the neighbors have, what's this stupid bridge going to look like? Is it going to wreck my neighborhood? So you live in a constant fear of what's it going to do. I feel like honestly, if you do it right, once it's there, it will be very good. Unfortunately, and I'm going to talk about that later, it's going to have a local impact wherever it goes. And that, frankly, that local impact won't be favorable, right? And if it was my neighborhood that it was coming into, this nice quiet little end cul-de-sac on 32nd Avenue, let's say west, 32nd west of Belmont, I'd be sitting where you all are sitting and saying, are you really serious? Are you really going to do this to my quiet little neighborhood, punch a bridge in there or past the school? So I hear loud and clear the concerns that you have. And again, I'd be right there where you are in a moment like this. But we still want to do what's best for the greater good, for the north neighborhoods and all the rest. So what's my view of this process? You know, all I've ever said is we need a neighborhood bridge to the south, a neighborhood connection. It could be as far north as 13th. It could be as far south as 32nd. We need that connection because of that unnecessary loop of mileage that everybody's doing. And I've stayed clear of the process. Some said maybe I didn't prefer this or that because of this or that. Honestly, you can check with Earl. I've stayed way clear of this to let the MPO work through its process with your input and looking at the economics of it, looking at what meets traffic objectives and what is the least adverse impact on the neighborhoods. And I've let the process go, and this is still part of the process. You all will have a chance to weigh in on it, and I appreciate it. It's cool. This is how it works. The very fact of this full room, what we get to hear, it's a big deal. So, that's what we have for that. And so the goal, what does it look like? Earl talked about the cross-section of the bridge. Seriously, we're going to make it fit into the neighborhood as best we can. It'll have one lane each way. It'll have a pedestrian element. The hope would be to make it look like a city street. Coming in, coming down on both ends, lighting, tuck it in as best we possibly can. No trucks, you know, and that's a commitment forever. You'd sign it and you'd enforce it to not bring commercial and truck traffic, agriculture into this neighborhood. We have failed. If we allow that to happen, we have failed, and it won't happen. And once again, I appreciate you guys here. Honestly, I know if this goes, and it could still move, right? It could move to Elks. Oh, to the point of Mr. Sandy. By all of Earl's analysis, if you drop south of 32nd, it's not a neighborhood connection anymore. And by the way, we do support Merrifield since that's identified. East Grand Forks and all of us MPO connected, which I'm really not. I was on the MPO like 10 years ago. That's the last I really had to do with them. We support Merrifield as a high drive bridge, as a bypass to the south to keep, for sure, all that heavy stuff out of the Grand Forks area. So we fully support it and would work hard to make it happen, but it would not accomplish the neighborhood connection that we need. It just wouldn't do it. And it wouldn't take the pressure off the north neighborhood like it's supposed to. That was clear in the analysis as well. So thanks again for coming. That's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further council comments, discussion, Mr. Weber?
Thank you,
I don't
Mr.
have the answer.
I don't have an answer. There's a couple things I'd like to put to bed first. 4th and Belmont, the neighborhood came out and decided that they preferred the four-way stop. We didn't. It wasn't a matter of financing. The stoplight had people kind of racing to hit the yellow, and it resulted in higher speeds. The four-way stop has been problematic, but it's not as bad a problem as the light that was replaced. So this wasn't a matter of finances. 47th, what I'm hearing about 47th, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Earl. Earl, there have been many times where I'm glad I wasn't you. Tonight was especially one of them.
Did the school agree with that?
Yes, the neighborhood we had many meetings about it. It was, as Earl mentioned, it's well documented, and it was like this meeting. And this is one of the great things about Grand Forks is we have a community, East Grand Forks and Grand Forks, where people come out, ask questions, and work to be involved with and protect their neighborhoods. So to each and every one of you, whether you have a child or a grandchild going to Wilder or to Phoenix or to Schrader, thanks for showing up tonight, for taking the time to be here. We want a bridge that is going to help us during flood season. 47th will not do that. Is that correct? 47th can't currently be built to do that.
Yeah, certainly.
What's that?
We didn't price it to a high and dry
You
because
didn't?
it was beyond.
It was beyond. So let's talk about price. Every year that we put this off, it's getting more and more expensive. We saw the rate go up already. So right now, on our side of the river, Grand Forks, I represent Ward 3. All 3 bridges come right through the neighborhoods in Ward 3. We're not looking to move all of the traffic from Ward 3 to some other neighborhood. But as we continue to increase traffic, there needs to be a solution. And every year that we put off that solution, it becomes more expensive. That's all I've got. Thanks again for coming out tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Weber.
Hi, my name is Sandy Marshall. I'm a Ward 5 City Council representative in Grand Forks, and so I suspect many of you here live in Ward 5, and I know many of you represent a neighborhood along the 32nd Avenue South corridor and nearby. So again, like others have said, I really appreciate you showing up and coming out in large numbers, no matter what neighborhood you represent, because hearing your voices, as other people have said, is really important. And I love that about this process, that we have people who are engaged and that all of you are engaged in this process. Thank you to Mr. Haugen. I think this is a good review of the information. And I know that within Ward 5, we've had a meeting with Mr. Haugen just a couple months ago to review some additional information. I believe that there is eventually going to be a need for 2 bridges to resolve both the problem of the in-town traffic between the 2 cities and to resolve the problem of the farm and industrial traffic. As Mr. Sandy had stated, my preference by far would be to see us work very quickly and very hard to make a Merrifield Bridge the top priority. Then we could see what kind of impact a Merrifield Bridge would have. Right now, we're assuming that it would have less impact than on the between town local traffic than on the industrial and farm, but we don't know that, and so we won't really know that for sure until we have that bridge. That would help to inform us as to where a northern bridge might be. And as I look at the information, personally, I think if we can go farther north than 32nd Avenue, that would, by the information that was provided, the farther north you get, the better the traffic flow would be between the communities and the better benefit it would have. So I'm hoping that we can continue to look at some of the northern possibilities and maybe some other ones that we haven't even thought of yet. NIMBY, many of you have heard that word, not in my backyard. It's a word I'm quite familiar with in my business, serving people with disabilities, and it's a word that has a lot of connotations to it. And it would be simple to say, we don't want it here because it's in my backyard, but it can go in somebody else's neighborhood and impact them, and we don't care. I don't know that anyone is actively going into this with that kind of approach. You know, granted, we are all concerned about our neighborhoods and our home values and our safety and our livelihoods, but other people throughout the community are as well. So it's important to me that we, as we proceed, we continue to look at the impact on the neighborhoods, and that's been talked about already. But certainly there might be a far greater impact on a neighborhood that has more homes with driveways that open to the street that might be busier as a result of a bridge. Certainly there might be less impact in other neighborhoods. And I think that's an important factor to look at. It's not one that's as identifiable in terms of quantifying it with data, but it is an important thing to look at. So you all are a part of that. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
I'll be brief. Last time I saw so many people here, we were talking about bump outs or arbor parks. So thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing some of your thoughts. I completely agree with what Mr. Sandy said. I agree with a lot of what Ms. Marshall said too. 32nd, in my opinion, is not the place to put the bridge in the Grand Forks community. That's my opinion. That's how I'll vote when it comes to it. I think when we look at Merrifield, I think we have a lot of options. I like what Ms. Marshall said. Let's get a bridge at Merrifield. Let's deal with the heavy truck traffic, because I think that's what a lot of people are discussing. People don't want heavy trucks coming down the roads going through the neighborhoods. Let's get that bridge built, then let's look at other options. So I'm going to be brief and short, and that's kind of where I stand on things.
Thank you. Any further council? Mr. Helms.
Dale Helms with East Grand Forks City Council. I recently just got on the council, so I don't know a whole lot about the bridge issue that's been going on other than the street talk I hear. But I have a paragraph here I'd like to read. On July 30th, 2003, a resolution adopting the 2027 Long-Range Transportation Plan for the Grand Forks, East Grand Forks metropolitan area was drawn and signed by Chairman Richard Grassel and Executive Director Earl Halligan. Heading the list of the issues resolved was that a bridge at the Merrifield Road be constructed first, and that a 32nd Avenue South Bridge not be pursued until the Merrifield Bridge is in place. That was in 2003. Now I'm going to stand here and tell you right now that as an East Grand Forks council member, I will not vote for any bridge that's not going to allow us to pass it over when the flood is here.
Thank you.
I will not vote for it. I'm not saying where the bridge should go, but I will not vote for it if we can't use it. We spent money foolishly many a times. It's time to quit.
Any further council? Mr. Olson?
I'm Mark Olson. I'm the president of the East Grand Forks City Council. I'm just glad that we're trying to get together and talking about this instead of just talking about improving it and not doing anything about it. So I appreciate everybody coming tonight. I think that this is going to be a process that we're going to have to keep working at it and getting input from all of you. I think the relationship that we've had and the councils working together on other projects that we've done over the last couple of years, it shows that we are cognizant of what our needs are and what we have to do to keep moving our communities forward and working together. Great discussion. I'm looking forward to hearing from people. That's one of the main reasons why I said, well, let's hear what everybody has to say. And I talked to Mr. Sandy a lot regarding what we're hearing or what's going on. So I appreciate it. And I'll look forward to hearing from everybody. Thank you.
Any other council comments? If not, we'd like to invite people to come forward. If you could pick 3 to 5 people if you want, you can all come out. Because we'll stay as long as people have input.
Okay, everybody, again, ground rules. Let's be complimentary of everyone instead of trying to put people down tonight. Let's try not to rehash things over and over again. So if somebody says something in front of you, there's no need to say it again, okay? Thank you.
But please state your name and address. Please state your name and address for the record and make your comments.
But not into the mic that's not live.
It's my
Oh, the live is, okay. Yeah. Okay, so good evening. My name is Katie Johnson, and I'm here representing Kelly School in Schrader. I'm the Kelly PTO president right now. I do live right off of 47th Avenue, and I'm going to start off by saying that I would rather a bridge be on 47th Avenue than on 32nd Avenue. So I wasn't going to bring that up because I'm not here to, pit one neighborhood against the other neighborhood. I agree wholeheartedly with what many have said. We need to do what we can to improve the safety around the Phoenix neighborhood and that neighborhood. I agree with that completely. I also have to thank Earl. I was at the meeting here in December, and I left that meeting with a lot of questions and uncertainties, and I have a whole new level of respect for Earl and the MPO and the work that they have done to get us to the point that we are today. So thank you for that. I'm confident that our city officials can do what needs to be done carefully and thoughtfully to make a plan that caters to the needs and desires of both cities. And I think that there needs to be a strong emphasis, like there already is, on safety. We feel at Kelly anyway that as of March 29th, Kelly School is the largest elementary school in Grand Forks with 469 students. Schrader's enrollment is 477. That number is only going up. We feel that with just under 1,000 kids in that neighborhood, a bridge right on that route would be catastrophic. Traffic already is an issue, as we already know that. We just don't have the room in that already established neighborhood to put that kind of volume through that area. So as a Kelly parent and a PTO president, I'm strongly opposed to the bridge at 32nd, and I hope other options will be considered. I like the idea of 62nd. I think there'd be some value in looking at that as potentially a bridge that would have that neighborhood feel down the road and also be able to be open year-round.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Heather Strandell, and I'm the president of the Schrader Middle School PTO, and thank you for allowing us to provide input and share our concern with the potential placement of a bridge on 32nd Avenue. Our PTO works to support and enhance the learning and social environment of Schrader Middle School, which includes ensuring that we're providing a safe environment for our children, their teachers, staff, and administrative leaders. Schrader Middle School is located right at 832nd Avenue South, and as Katie said, our enrollment is increasing. We are anticipating 575 students beginning the school year next year. One of the advantages of the location of Schrader Middle School is the fact that several of our students can walk and bike to school. Even on a cold 10 below January day, you will see several students walking and biking to school. And in this day of smartphones and Fortnite, we as adults are responsible for encouraging our young adults to be active by walking and biking to school. Even the city of Grand Forks promotes our neighborhoods to be walkable. As you might imagine, putting a bridge on 32nd Avenue raises all kinds of concerns for the safety of our middle school students at Schrader, and as Katie said, the 500 students at Kelly Elementary right next door. The traffic on 32nd Avenue is already crazy. It is so busy, and it creates great anxiety to me as a parent and as a president of the PTO. We want to make sure that our kids are getting to school safely and back home safely. My son Leo would attest that whenever he rides his bike to school, I start the night before reminding him of how careful he needs to be to watch out for cars. But any average day, morning or 3:30, you will hear horns honking or car brakes screeching because it just happens. It's not safe now, and it's not going to be if we increase the traffic by adding a bridge. I know one of the items that you are supporting for the rationale between a bridge from Grand Forks to East Grand Forks is to offload the traffic by Phoenix Elementary. They have 255 students. it seems illogical that we would transfer the traffic from that area of town to 32nd Avenue when you look at the enrollment at both Schrader and Kelly to be 1,000 students. I mean, just stop and think about that. I didn't even realize we have 1,000 students on that one block going to our schools, kindergarten to 8th grade, until getting ready for this meeting tonight. I can definitely sympathize with those neighbors, the staff at Phoenix, families, students with their situation. However, it's not only illogical to move the traffic, it's irresponsible. And I know, Earl, I appreciate you working with the schools for the safety, but I have a hard time looking at what we can do to make those intersections safe for those 1,000 students. So please, as a parent and as the president of Schrader Middle School, these kids are precious assets to our community. Don't jeopardize the safety of those 1,000 students by putting a bridge at one of the busiest hubs in our community.
Hi there. My name is Eric Hansen. I live on East Elmwood Drive, just right behind where the 32nd bridge would go. I like all the comments about safety. Safety can't be underestimated or overstated. And one thing that really concerns me is the attitude that we need to hurry up and chase funding. When the MPO, the process for identifying the 2045 plan, none of us found out about it until way too late in the process to do anything about it. And it feels like we're being ramrodded again, that we need to hurry up and chase funding, make it shovel ready. And I don't think we're having the dialogue that needs to happen here. Hurrying up and chasing money is not a good enough idea. And we're talking about fundamentally changing neighborhoods, multiple neighborhoods, and that can't be taken lightly. This is a fundamental change. The Point Bridge has been in existence to some effect since 1898. The Demers Bridge is right there along with it. Not the current bridge, obviously, but in some form or factor, it's been there for 120 years. There's nobody that lives in those neighborhoods that knew or that moved into a house not knowing that there was a bridge there. And this is a completely different conversation. Another thing, that we have to throw around a lot of numbers here. There's study numbers and a lot of dollar numbers. And I'm reminded of a quote here that an ounce of context is worth a pound of facts. And this is context. This is an emotional, this is a political decision that cannot be based solely on numbers. There's a bigger factor and a bigger thing that's effective than that. In conclusion, a neighborhood bridge right now is simply not viable. It's not viable without further involvement from the community, which has been lacking to this point. There's no reason that we can't do a Merrifield bridge first, like Mr. Helms has identified, that's been talked about for decades. Let's go ahead and do it first, and it benefits everyone, it benefits everything, and then we can go from there and see what happens from that. That's all I got.
My name is Todd Leak. I live south of Laredo, North Dakota. I'm a member of Grand Forks County Citizens Coalition. Some people here have the institutional memory of our organization with the landfill issues that came up in the early 2000s. Concerning the Merrifield Bridge, there was discussions back in the early 2000s with the MPO discussing the exacerbation of flooding south of Grand Forks if a Merrifield Road bridge, as was stated here, would be complementary to a flood control system in Grand Forks. putting a high or dry bridge option in at Merrifield Road, we have to understand what the ramifications are for the lands to the south, just as we see happening for the long debate over the flood control situation in Fargo. And there's a lot of advocacy here for the Merrifield Bridge, but we have to understand what it might do to the lands to the south. I'm not here representing the townships to the south or the community of Thompson, but our organization that works with rural areas of Grand Forks County for their advocacy and their voice in these sort of infrastructural issues. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
you. Hello, everyone. My name is Jude Freeman. I live at 315 Belmont Road. You can't get much closer to 4th Avenue South at Belmont Road than I am. The stop signs were a test. They seem to be somewhat okay, but they won't last forever. We need a stoplight put back in on 4th and Belmont for the safety of the crossing of the children at Phoenix. For those of you who have been scared of a bridge for 20 years, I've been waiting 45 years for a bridge at 32nd Avenue South. And it's been delay and delay and delay. We got this reason, we got that reason, we don't do it because of this, we don't do it because of that. People started building houses because they were delaying the bridge. Time has come to build a bridge. We need a bridge at Merrifield as well for the commercial truck traffic and the farmers. We need 2 bridges, one at Merrifield, one at 32nd Avenue. If I could get Earl to put that map up again so we can compare Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, there's no reason why somebody in East Grand Forks on the south end is going to drive 3 miles south to cross a bridge, to drive 3 miles north to get to Grand Forks. Same problem they're having now with driving 2 miles south to cross a bridge, to drive 2 miles north. South. You know what I mean. We need a community bridge. We are a full community. Grand Forks, East Grand Forks is a community. To get into the south side of East Grand Forks residential area, we need to be further north than Merrifield. We need to have something with something of a straight shot. 32nd Avenue connects to the interstate. It's the only thing that truly makes sense to run from the interstate over to East Grand Forks. It's going to be a residential bridge, not a commercial bridge. The community has to be a community. We all need to shoulder some of the burden of the traffic that's coming. That's all I got.
Hello everyone, I am Barry Folsom and I live in Grand Forks. On Belmont Road, across Lincoln Golf Course, and I see faces that I know because I've been in Grand Forks all my life. And I farmed for many years, and I believe in a Merrifield Bridge too. I know about bypasses and getting across the north end. But we also farmed on the south end. We had to go to and fro, east side, west side. But I'm also a resident. My dad was, he called it being, he's not a grandfather, but anyways, a city farmer. He's always lived in the city. I forget the term, but. And I used to live on the point for 12 years over by Steve Gander. So I know the loop, the Murray Loop going past this gentleman's house. And anyways, I went to 2003 meeting probably downtown, and I've been following it some. Just I don't know my nature to get involved. But I know a lot of you here because you're against something, and I'm probably here because I'm for the common good, and I see how, yeah, Merrifield, it's good to know that's a high drive bridge, and I don't know about the floodable thing, maybe it's all right, maybe it's not, but I was the consultants there in 2003, I guess, and then I've been to other meetings through the years, just a few, but there's very few people there. I tell you, go to those meetings, I don't know why you're all here, it's all reactionary, okay? But there's hardly anybody at those meetings. I've gone to some of those meetings, and the consultants in here, 17 Elks or 32nd. Oh, he could tell me, you know, the 3 and the pluses, minuses. Okay, what's the least worst one? I guess what we're thinking here, because you guys are probably all against it. So, well, to me, I just saw Elks Drive. I've never had let go. It's like that disperses the traffic. I totally sympathize with 32nd because it's so invasive. I don't know how it can even go in that neighborhood because it's so developed there and the bridge. It maybe looks nice on the east side, but there's a flood opening in Elks Drive right now. There's a hole where you drive through, and then 17th, what's it going to do? Tear up the tee box on number 8 and go through the Pat Murray. There's a greenway over there, so I don't understand how the shovel plant can even get started there. I'm just saying I live near Elks Drive, but unlike that one gal, anyway, I should have approached to say 47th and 62nd, or I mean, as the city grows, Fargo has all kinds of bridges, okay? They put a nice Lacey bridge in on 12th Avenue North. Just goes nicely across. It was toll-wise toll, but now there's no toll. I mean, we can get by with more bridges. The 47th, that's where Grand Forks is in Bolivia. So I lived on the east side. 32nd is already out in the boondocks. 62nd would be way out in the boondocks. I mean, East Grand Forks grows south, but also grows east. It's kind of a south-southeast track. It's not growing like just straight south. There's a lot of nice farmland around there. Anyway, so it's the very south end of East Grand Forks is like it's between 17th and Elks Drive right now. If you want to build Merrifield Bridge, but then as the Grand Forks gets to be a big metropolis, then 47th might be another bridge, because that's 2 miles farther down anyways. I said my piece about what I think.
I'm Chad Grassel. I'm the alderman at large in East Grand Forks. I have to respond to a couple things that have been said, because, and I know that we have the PTO presidents are here, and my job is education. I'm with kids every day. I mean, it's an awesome job. And if I don't talk about our kids on our side of the river, I'm probably going to get in trouble tomorrow. So, you know, we talk about our students, or the students of Schrader and is it Kelly? Yeah. We need to talk about our students at South Point and at Central Middle School. We're looking at about 900 of our students as well that we need to worry about. Just like we said, if we had the meeting over there, it would probably fill with people passionate about not dropping a bridge in the middle of our neighborhood, and I get that. But what I think we really need to think about is the safety, and I think Earl has proven it with the things that they did. But anytime we think about a kid and the safety, it doesn't matter if it's 1 or 3,000. We really need to think about that piece as well. And my dad's kicked me out of my house, or out of his house, numerous times when he was alive, so I'm going to disagree with that Merrifield bridge. That was my father who signed that piece of paper. But I really think that we need to figure out a way to get to alleviate all of those pieces in the north end and the south end. And if you ever have the pleasure of coming over there in the morning on the south end, it's terrible. So we have lots of people on our side. So I just wanted to make sure that you think about those kids. Yes.
Can I ask a question? My name is Karma Hansen, and I'm the coordinator for Safe Kids Grand Forks. And like I have this big, huge umbrella over northeast North Dakota and northwest Minnesota, and they're all my kids. And so I'm going to speak, and I have a question. Tell me, I get that there's your schools there, but how would a 32nd Avenue bridge impact your kids at that school
I would assume it's
positively
going
or
to
negatively?
it's going to alleviate some of the pressure of our people bringing their kids here and back and forth, to allowing them
But they
to
don't
drive to school
If
or
they're
to
coming
walk to
into
school.
North Dakota, your school, those schools are on the eastern edge of East Grand
Correct.
Forks, correct? So traffic coming into North Dakota across a bridge is really not going to alleviate any traffic near your schools, is it? I'm just trying to make the
Traffic
connection.
going out and traffic coming back through to get to the bridge to go to.
Yeah, why are they going? Why would they be going to the far east side of the community?
A lot of people in East
They're on their way to work.
Yeah, they go.
Make a loop.
But it's not going to negatively impact those kids, is it? Are you trying to imply
Well,
that?
here's what I'm saying. If we have 500 cars going out and 250 of them can head to that bridge, that's going to alleviate 250 coming back through, where our kids are traveling on the beautiful sidewalks that Safe Kids in the city of East Grand Forks have worked on. That's going to help save us. That's all I wanted to point out. That, I mean, there's passion on both sides,
Right.
and the safety of our kids.
I just
That's
want
all
to.
I
I just
wanted.
want to really understand what impact you're trying to imply might happen with it, with that. So I'm just trying to understand that. So.
And you know, we're expanded so far that a lot of our families drive their kids to school.
Yeah.
Lots. Okay.
Versus walking and biking, Chad.
Correct.
Yeah.
Don't forget the bikers.
I need to speak up. The microphone is only for television. Okay. Hello, my name is Gabe Arnson, and I'm a resident of East Grand Forks. I actually live on the point, so a bridge on 32nd would probably increase my house value, but I am against it. I don't think it's worth it for spending, to be fiscally responsible, spending 20-some to 30-some to 40-some million dollars to cut my 10-minute drive time down to 6 minutes. Thank you. I'll tell my wife I got a applause. I've lived in Minneapolis, St. Cloud, and
Fargo, Moorhead.
and I mean, we are just so blessed with the current drive times. You can get anywhere down in 10 minutes, so I don't think that should be part of the discussion. But I do fully support the Merrifield bridge. I think that would be great for the feed truck drivers and everything else going down there too. So I live on the point of East Grand Forks. I have 5 kids myself. They go to, 3 of them go to school, 2 of them are at home still. And that simple solution is put roundabout right there on Bigland and Reinhardt. I'm Chris Adams, and Roland Young would be rolling in his grave if I didn't come up here and speak for him on behalf of 62nd Avenue. Obviously, our farm is right on the edge of there. If that does make sense in the future, long run, obviously it would come out right by our shop on the south side of East Grand Forks. Merrifield solves all that for us. Aside from the community part of it, our opinion, I guess, is kind of a moot point there because we usually have to go south anyway. But as far as our equipment goes, it would be a lifesaver back and forth right there for Merrifield. So we're for Merrifield. We're against 62nd Avenue primarily because it just isn't even feasible. It'd be a half a mile of bridge before you even get to the river. Not to mention it'd be farther past our driveway of our farmyard before it even have to start. So, just looking at it on the map, it wouldn't even make sense. That's an option, hence why they probably haven't done much of the due diligence with that. So, as far as the community bridge, I don't know what our opinion is on that, but I know that uprooting a 32nd Avenue neighborhood there would be pretty substantial. However, your comment on thinking outside the box to try to figure out something on, something different. We have 5 options. We can narrow that down to a couple common sense points that won't work and will work. What else can we do that hasn't been thought about? Because that's what it is.
build a road on top of the dike? I mean, think about it. It's like, that's what we have to start thinking of, because it will be easy to think about that way. It's just looking at the map, you can easily chop out half the options. It's just plain common sense in my point of view. So anyway, on behalf of Roland Young.
I'm Mark Pryor. You know, you mentioned something, not in my backyard. This is freaking my backyard. No doubt about it. Yes, I'm part of the 32nd neighborhood. I'm on Elmwood. Our backyard is the levee. We purchased it for that reason. I don't want a bridge there, but I can tell you, I don't want anybody, East Grand Forks or Grand Forks, to have a freaking bridge in their backyard. How hard is that? We know there's issues. Why don't we just say, okay, enough. How long are the bridges that we've had, the 3 bridges? How old are they?
Last one was 1960s.
1960s.
That's the last time we built.
Okay, so we're talking 60 years. Why are we just thinking 2045? Why are we not thinking 2085? Why are we not thinking, if we're going to get this done, with the growth this city has experienced over the last 5 years that I've been here, with the growth to the south, why are we not thinking about that? We have to think long term. And if you think that 17th, Elks, 32nd, even 47th is going to solve anything long term, I'm sorry. With the growth this area is experiencing, those are short-term answers. So if we're going to spend this money, and if we're going to do this, get it all the way south and think about what we want Grand Forks to be and East Grand Forks for the next 100 years. So we don't have to have somebody stand up and read something that was done almost 20 years ago that people already agree on. Like, I don't think that's rocket science. Don't see any of you guys disagreeing.
We have time for just a couple more. Anyone else that wants to speak?
I'm Sandy Carlson, and I live near Kelly and Schrader. I know the school representatives talked about the school issues. It's a year-round neighborhood. We have softball, soccer, we have hockey, we have a summer program for kids. What summer fun? I don't even remember what it's called. But that's year-round. I go up and down 32nd. I watch kids come out of the south side doors of Kelly. They run across the street in the middle of the street because anybody, the closest direction is a straight line. They do not go to the corners if they live in the apartments. We need to be aware of that. It's a playground kids play at year-round. My kids went over there in the evening. They could have crossed right at the street. They had cornered. They didn't always. They would go half a block down, cross where the playground was. I have witnessed it. This fall, I watched a kid run out between 2 buses. Had there been a car on the other side, on the school side, the kid would have been hit. I was on the other side doing 10 miles an hour. And, sorry, I don't know talking about the people usually. But I think we need to look at that, and I know they said yes, there's other schools that are affected on like 47. Yes, but South is off the street. They have soccer, they have softball, everything accesses with off-street parking. Schrader is on the street. And you have kids who are unloading, and in the winter when it's hot, it gets dark at 4:30. So I think we really need to look at this. Yes, do the one in Merrifield, but look at something else other than 32nd.
Anyone else like to say a few words?
I think the next step is we have our city administrators and Mr. Haugen discuss this further, and then where do we go from here? What's the next step?
You just said it.
That's what we'll do. I think it's important to also point out, Earl mentioned several times that there's additional funding coming, that perhaps the federal or the states will have funding. The city of Grand Forks has over $150 million worth of deferred maintenance on its roads. So although we are getting $12 million from the state, that doesn't necessarily mean there's $12 million to put towards any new bridge. It would have to be part of the priorities of all of our road systems. So just to make sure people understand that.
I want to thank you for turning, yes? Oh, Mayor Gander.
One last thing I would say is no one's going to try to rush this. There was some thought that this was trying to be a rush job now to get funding. This has been in the hopper for 25 years. 32nd Avenue was identified as a corridor back 20 years ago, 25 years ago.
And the same process happened then as it is now. We
A
get
stalemate.
exactly,
A
but
stalemate.
we get involved very late in the process.
Where you're involved now, so believe me, nobody's trying to ramrod anything. This is still a continuous conversation. And our hope would be, just again, you guys woke up, you're engaged. Let's continue this conversation on my side of it and on our side, and I hope it's the same thing that we share. We're just trying to connect the neighborhoods and make it one community across a state line and across a river. So stay in the game, keep your ear to the rail. We're glad you're on board.
Be engaged.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.